Ethan Cole was tired in a way that sleep never fixed. The kind of tired that sat in the bones and followed him everywhere. The kind that came from long shifts, short pay, and the quiet weight of raising a child alone in a galaxy that never slowed down for anyone. The space station Havenport Ring drifted in the dark between trade routes, a metal world that never slept. Ships came and went every minute. Different species crossed its halls, some rich, some powerful, many forgotten. Ethan and his daughter Mia were regulars at a small diner tucked near Dock 7. It was not fancy. The lights were warm but old. The tables were scratched. The smell of fried protein and sweet spice filled the air, but it was cheap, and it was safe. Mia liked it because the booths were big and the windows showed stars. Ethan liked it because nobody asked questions. They sat in their usual booth. Mia swung her legs under the table, humming softly to herself while drawing shapes on the foggy glass with her finger. "Daddy," she said, "can we get the blue juice again?" Ethan smiled a little. "If they have it." A shadow moved beside their table. It was Lyra. She was tall and thin, with pale silver skin and eyes that reflected light like glass. Small ridges ran along her neck, fluttering when she was nervous. She wore the diner's brown uniform, a little too big for her narrow shoulders. Ethan had seen her many times before. She always worked the late shift, always quiet, always polite. Tonight something was wrong. Her hands were shaking, not just a little. They trembled hard enough that the tray rattled. The cups clinked together softly as she placed them down. I will return with your order," she said. Her voice was thin, almost breaking. She turned quickly, as if afraid to stay too long. Ethan watched her walk away. He had seen fear before, real fear. The kind that came before bad things happened. Mia looked up at him. "Daddy, is she cold?" "I don't think so," Ethan said slowly. They ordered their food from a service panel. While they waited, Ethan kept watching Lyra. She moved from table to table, forcing herself to smile. Her shaking got worse as time passed. Once a cup slipped from her grip and shattered on the floor. A large alien customer laughed. "Clumsy," it said. Lyra bowed her head and cleaned it up quickly. No one helped her. Ethan felt something twist in his chest. When she returned to their table with the food, her breathing was uneven. Her hands shook so badly that she nearly dropped Mia's drink. Before she could pull away, Ethan spoke. "Hey," she froze. Slowly, she looked at him. Her eyes were wide, afraid. "Why are you shaking?" Ethan asked gently. The question hung in the air. Lyra's throat moved. She looked around as if expecting someone to punish her for stopping. "I am fine," she said too fast. Ethan didn't raise his voice. He didn't lean forward. He stayed calm. "You don't look fine." Mia tilted her head. "Are you sick?" Lyra's breathing became shallow. Her neck ridges fluttered fast. "No one," she whispered, "has ever asked me that." Ethan blinked. She stared at the table, her fingers digging into the tray. "I am not permitted to discuss personal distress," she said, like she had memorized the words. Ethan nodded slowly. "Then don't explain it for rules, explain it like a person." Her eyes lifted to his. For a long moment she didn't speak, then her voice cracked. "Tonight is my last shift." Ethan felt his stomach drop. "You quitting?" Lyra shook her head very slowly. "No," she said, "I am being reclaimed." Mia frowned. "What does that mean?" Lyra swallowed. Her hands shook harder. "It means my debt contract has ended," she said, "and the collectors are coming." Ethan had heard of debt contracts. Most humans had. They were legal under galactic law. People worked to pay off travel, food, shelter. But collectors were not kind employers. "What happens when they come?" Ethan asked. Lyra hesitated, then she said it. "I will no longer belong to myself." The words were quiet, simple, terrifying. Ethan leaned back slowly, trying to control his breathing. "Belong to who?" "To the contract holders," she said. "They decide my work, my location, my lifespan." Mia's hands clenched into small fists. "That's not fair," she said. Lyra looked at her, surprised. "Fairness," Lyra said softly, "is not part of the system." Ethan stared at the table. The galaxy was full of systems like that, systems that crushed the weak because no one stopped them. "How much is the debt?" Ethan asked. Lyra laughed once. It sounded broken. "It is already paid," she said. "That is not the point. The contract never ends. It only changes form." Ethan felt anger rise in his chest, hot and sharp. "That's slavery," he said. Lyra flinched at the word. "That term is discouraged," she whispered. Ethan stood. The diner seemed quieter suddenly. He reached into his pocket and placed his payment chip on the table. "Stay here," he told Mia. "Daddy," she said, "I'll be right back." He walked toward the counter. The manager was a thick-bodied alien with heavy eyes. It looked annoyed as Ethan approached. problem?" the manager asked. "Yes," Ethan said. "Your employee is being taken against her will," the manager blinked. "That is not my concern. The contracts are legal." "So were a lot of bad things," Ethan replied. The manager leaned forward. "Human, do not interfere." Ethan's jaw tightened. "I'm going to." The manager's eyes narrowed. "You will cause trouble." Ethan thought of Mia, of Lyra's shaking hands, of the galaxy telling people they didn't matter. "Good," he said. He turned back to the booth. Lyra was standing stiffly beside it, eyes full of fear. "You should not have said anything," she whispered. "They will punish you too." Ethan knelt so he was at her eye level. "Listen to me," he said. "Humans don't walk away when someone asks for help, even when the system says we should." She stared at him, stunned. Mia reached out and gently touched Lyra's sleeve. "You can sit with us," she said. "You look lonely." Lyra's hands shook again, but this time something else appeared in her eyes. Hope. Outside the diner, dark shapes moved in the corridor. The collectors had arrived. And Ethan Cole was not planning to step aside. The collectors did not rush in. They never did. They walked slowly through the station corridor, tall and heavy, wearing dark control armor that showed no symbols of mercy. Their boots made steady sounds against the metal floor, each step calm and certain. They knew the law was on their side. They always did. Inside the diner, the air felt tight. Lyra stood frozen near Ethan's booth. Her breathing was fast, her eyes fixed on the doorway. Every part of her body remembered stories she had heard since childhood. Stories of people who were reclaimed and never returned the same. Ethan stayed seated, but his muscles were tense. He kept one hand on the table and the other close to Mia. "Daddy," Mia whispered, "are those the bad people?" Ethan did not lie. "Yes." Lyra shook her head quickly. "You must leave," she said. "Now, please, they will not care that you are human. They will mark you as an obstacle." Ethan looked at her. "And leave you." Her voice dropped to almost nothing. "That is how it always happens." The diner door slid open. The collectors entered. There were 3 of them, tall, gray-skinned, with narrow eyes and metal bands around their arms that glowed faintly. Their leader scanned the room, then looked directly at Lyra. "You," it said. "Contract Asset L73, step forward." Lyra's legs would not move. The manager hurried out from behind the counter, bowing slightly. "Honored collectors, there has been a minor delay." "Silence," the leader said, its gaze returned to Lyra. "Failure to comply will result in penalties." Ethan stood up. Every eye in the diner turned toward him. "She's not going anywhere," Ethan said. The collectors looked at him slowly, as if noticing him for the first time. "A human," the leader said. "This does not concern you." "It does," Ethan replied. "You're taking her against her will." The leader tilted its head. "Incorrect. She belongs to the contract." "She's a person," Ethan said. A few customers shifted uncomfortably. No one spoke. "Personhood," the collector said, "does not cancel ownership." Ethan felt anger burn in his chest. "On Earth," he said, "we tried that idea once. It didn't end well." The collector stepped closer. "You are interfering with lawful reclamation." "Then the law is wrong," Ethan said. Mia stood up on the booth seat, her small voice cut through the tension. "Why are you hurting her?" she asked. The collectors looked down at her. For the first time, the leader hesitated. "She is not being hurt," it said. "She is being reassigned." Mia shook her head. "She's shaking. That means she's scared." Silence filled the diner. Ethan placed a hand on Mia's shoulder. "Stay behind me." The collector's eyes narrowed. "Human, step aside." "No," Ethan said. The word was simple, solid. The collector raised one arm. The metal band glowed brighter. Before it could act, a voice came from the back of the diner. "That's enough." Another human stood up, a dock worker, then another. And another, men and women in work clothes, pilots, engineers, a medic. They moved slowly, forming a loose line behind Ethan. No weapons, no shouting, just presence. The collector looked around. "This is irrational. You risk penalties." A human woman crossed her arms. "We're used to that." Station security arrived moments later, drawn by the tension. They stopped when they saw the crowd. "This is a legal action," the collector said sharply. Ethan turned to the security officer. "Under whose law?" The officer hesitated. "Galactic Labor Code," Ethan nodded. "Then I want a formal review, human legal review," the manager gasped. "You cannot." "I can," Ethan said. "Humans have the right to challenge contracts involving sentient beings on mixed stations. It's in the cross-species charter." The collector stared at him. "No human has ever used that clause." Ethan met its gaze. "There's a first time for everything." Lyra's eyes filled with tears. The collector lowered its arms slowly. "This will delay, not stop reclamation." That's fine, Ethan said. Delays save lives. The collectors stepped back. For now, the leader said. But you have marked yourself, Ethan shrugged. I've been marked before. The collectors left the diner. The tension did not fade immediately. People breathed again only after the door closed. Lyra collapsed into the booth, shaking harder than before. I am still not free, she whispered. Ethan sat beside her. No, but you're not alone anymore. Word spread fast across Havenport Ring. A human had challenged a debt reclamation. By morning, the station was buzzing. Alien workers whispered in corners. Humans talked openly. Some were afraid, others were angry. Ethan spent the next day running between offices, terminals, and legal kiosks. He barely slept. Mia stayed with a friend from the docks. Lyra waited. She expected the collectors to return at any moment. Every sound made her flinch. When Ethan returned that evening, his face looked tired but determined. They accepted the review, he said. It'll take time, but they can't touch you until it's done. Lyra stared at him. Why are you doing this? Ethan thought of his late wife. Of promises broken by systems that did not care. Because someone once helped me when they didn't have to, he said. Because my daughter asked why no one helps, and because if we don't push back, nothing ever changes. The review hearing began 2 days later. The collectors argued law, ownership, efficiency. Ethan argued humanity. He spoke of consent, of fear, of dignity. He spoke simply, clearly. He showed recordings of Lyra shaking, of similar workers across the station. The council listened. For the first time, the collectors looked uncertain. Outside the chamber, aliens gathered, watching, waiting. They were not allowed to speak, but they were watching humans do what no one else ever had. Stand up. Lyra stood beside Ethan as the hearing paused. Her hands were still shaking, but this time she did not hide them. She was no longer invisible, and the galaxy was starting to notice. The hearing chamber was quiet in a way that felt heavy. Rows of seats rose in a wide circle, filled with observers from many species. Some wore fine clothing, others wore work suits stained by long hours. The council members sat high above, their faces calm, distant, trained to hide reaction. Lyra stood beside Ethan at the center platform. Her legs felt weak, but she forced herself to stand straight. Her hands still shook, but she did not hide them anymore. She wanted them to see. She wanted them to know what their laws did to people like her. Across the chamber, the collectors waited, still, confident. They had ruled systems like this for generations. The council leader spoke. The review will continue, it said. Final statements will be heard. One of the collectors stepped forward. Our system is efficient, it said. Debt contracts ensure order, resources are managed, productivity is maintained. Emotion cannot be allowed to weaken structure. Murmurs moved through the crowd. The collector continued. This human interference is dangerous. If every species behaves emotionally, galactic stability will fail. The council turned its attention to Ethan. You may respond, the leader said. Ethan took a breath. He did not shout, he did not insult, he simply spoke. You talk about efficiency, he said, but you never talk about cost. He gestured gently toward Lyra. You never talk about fear, about lives spent shaking. About people who stop believing they belong to themselves. The collector scoffed. Sentiment, Ethan nodded. Yes, that's what you call it. He looked up at the council. Humans come from a planet that nearly destroyed itself, he said. We built systems like yours. We justified them, we called them necessary. His voice stayed calm, but the room listened. And we paid for it, he said, with suffering, with blood, with generations of regret. The council leaned forward slightly. We learned something, Ethan continued. If a system only works when people are silent, it's not strong, it's fragile. The collector interrupted. This is irrelevant. No, Ethan said, it's a warning. He turned to Lyra. Tell them, he said softly. Lyra's throat tightened. She had never spoken in a place like this. Never been asked to, she looked at the council. My species was told contracts were protection, she said. We were told obedience meant safety. Her voice shook, but she kept going. When my parents were reclaimed, they said it was temporary, she said. I never saw them again. The chamber was silent. I worked every shift, she said. I followed every rule, I paid every debt. Her hands trembled as she lifted them. And still they came. She looked at Ethan. This human asked me a question no one ever asked, she said. Why are you shaking? She swallowed. That question reminded me I was still alive. The council leader raised a hand. That is enough, it said gently. The collector's posture stiffened. This hearing is compromised by emotion, it said. The council leader replied, "Emotion does not negate truth." The chamber buzzed softly. The council withdrew for deliberation. Time stretched. Ethan sat beside Lyra on a bench outside the chamber. Mia sat on his other side, her small hand holding his. "Did we do it?" Mia asked quietly. Ethan smiled sadly. "We did what we could." Lyra stared at the floor. "If they rule against us, the collectors will return." Ethan nodded. "I know." Mia looked up at Lyra. "If they try to take you, we won't let them." Lyra felt something warm break inside her chest. No one had ever said that to her. The chamber doors finally opened. Everyone stood. The council leader spoke. "After review," it said, "the council finds the current debt reclamation system in violation of sentient rights under the expanded charter." Gasps filled the room. The collector stepped forward sharply. "This is impossible." "The ruling is final," the council said. "All perpetual debt contracts are suspended pending reform." Lyra's breath caught. "Contract Asset L73, the council continued, is released from reclamation effective immediately." The world seemed to stop. Lyra swayed. Ethan caught her before she fell. She laughed and cried at the same time, covering her face with shaking hands. "I'm free," she whispered. "I'm free." The collector stared at the council in disbelief. "You will destabilize the economy," it said. The council replied calmly, "Then perhaps it deserves to be destabilized." News spread faster than anyone expected. Across Havenport Ring, alien workers watched feeds in silence. Some cried, some stared, unable to believe it. Humans gathered in groups, quiet but proud. For the first time, the galaxy saw humans not as conquerors, but as something far more dangerous. People who cared. The collectors left the station within the hour. They did not threaten. They did not look back. Days passed. Lyra did not know what to do with herself. Freedom felt strange, heavy, like a door opened into a world she did not understand. Ethan helped her find temporary housing. He helped her file identity papers under human protection law. He never told her what to do. He only offered choices. She chose to stay at the diner. Not as a contract worker, as an employee. The manager, now nervous and polite, agreed quickly. On her first free shift, Lyra stood behind the counter, hands steady for the first time in her life. Ethan and Mia came in that evening. Lyra served them blue juice. Her hands did not shake. Mia smiled wide. "You're different." Lyra smiled back. "I feel different." Around them, humans and aliens sat together, talked together, ate together. The diner felt warmer. Weeks later, similar hearings began across other stations. The ruling became precedent. Collectors were challenged. Contracts were questioned. The galaxy changed, not all at once, but enough to matter. One night after closing, Lyra stood by the window, watching ships pass through the stars. Ethan stood beside her. "I don't know what comes next," she said. "That's okay," Ethan replied. "None of us ever really do." She looked at him. "You changed my life with one question." He shook his head. "You changed it by answering." Mia ran over and hugged Lyra tightly. "You're family now," she said. Lyra froze, then she hugged back. Out in the stars, the galaxy continued as it always had. But somewhere deep in its systems, a quiet fear had begun to spread. Not fear of human weapons, not fear of human ships. Fear of what happens when humans see injustice and decide they will not look away.